Hey there, it's Tracy Tully and you're listening to Tracy Tully Talks at bbsradio.com, the place to be right now. Streaming live with another 60 minutes of thought-provoking topics. Sharing with you conversations that are relevant today, tomorrow and in the future. Join me each week on Thursday mornings at 10 a.m. Australian time, AEST, 5 p.m. Wednesday PT. Hello Los Angeles. If you missed the live show, jump onto your favourite podcasting platform and you'll find me on Tracy Tully Talks. We do have some adult language, so if you have some little ones around, pop on your earphones. Hello and welcome. It's Tracy Tully here from Tracy Tully Talks. And today in our studio, we have a brilliant guest and her name is Elisa James. How are you, Elisa?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure to have you today. And I know the listeners will really enjoy what you have to say. So Elisa is a voice coach and she hails from Sydney in New South Wales, Australia. And Elisa is what we call an edu trainer, a presenter, and she also is an Amazon #1 bestseller. Can you tell us about your book, Elisa, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Find Your Voice, the 10 steps from anxiety to confidence for public speakers, came to me for a big reason. I had started actually writing my second book that was going to be released on Amazon, and I started writing a technical book about voice. And I was about halfway through the book and I thought, who really is interested in the technical aspects of voice production? Well, singers, actors, and people who are teachers and coaches like me. But then I thought, the rest of the world, what are they struggling with? They're not struggling with the technical aspects behind voice production. Excuse me, they're actually struggling with confidence, most of them. When I was a little girl, I struggled massively with confidence and insecurity. So over 35 years of an entertainment career all around the world, that was the biggest struggle that I had, apart from health issues, mental health issues, all sorts of stuff. But confidence was huge for me. So when I finally figured it out and figured out how to reverse engineer confidence, I thought this is what people need to know. How to shortcut the path from anxiety to confidence much quicker than I did. It took me over 20 years for me to get there, but I wanted people to know that they don't have to suffer for life, that there is an answer and they can do something about it. They don't have to just label themselves as lack of confidence or label themselves as insecure or shy or an introvert, because I had labeled myself, Tracy, for so many years as all those things, and it's not true. It's not true.
And tell me, Elisa, what is it about you? What tell us about the woman behind your business?
Well, the woman behind the business now is very different to the woman I was, or the person that I was. Nowadays, my passion is helping others speak up and speak out for themselves with confidence and competence, whether that's on stage, on podcast, or on camera. I wasn't always like that because I was that little shy, introverted, labeled girl as massively anxious and unable to really fulfill dreams because of that anxiety. I struggled with panic attacks. I had unresolved trauma for more than 20 years. And all of those things led to physiological problems that were manifesting as a voice issue. So I really learned a lot by going through all this. And it started at a very, very young age, being shut down very, very early on. And then because of being shut down, having jaw tension, tongue tension, throat tension, getting scared about speaking up and out for myself. I never would put my hand up in class. I would absolutely die if anyone saw me. I would sit up the back. I don't think any of my teachers knew that I existed, really. And I don't think many people at school knew I existed either, because I was quiet as a mouse and scared of everything. The only time I ever came alive was when I put on the hat of the performer and with my costumes and our makeup and my wig and, in a period or whatever it was, in a period costume. And then I would walk on this other person. And that I loved, because then I could live in this fantasy world that wasn't me, because the me that was off stage, I didn't even like. It was She was awful. She was in this cage of tension and anxiety and judgment and criticism that was very hard to break free of. But when I was on stage, I was this other person. And I never understood why I couldn't synergistically combine the two people. It took me a very long time to realize that I had a lot of onion layers to peel down. I had a lot of personal growth that I needed to do, but I also needed to do a bunch of study and learning along the way. That's what led me to my degrees. So when I studied, I did 3 degrees, one in nutrition first to heal myself and all my allergies, asthma, hay fever, all the things that were really interfering with my voice. And then I went on to do holistic health and spiritual counseling. So I did a lot of energy medicine and energy healing during that time. Then I finally moved back to Australia because I'd been overseas for 20 years as a performer. And when I went to Australia, I nearly did a degree in psychology, thinking I want to be a psychologist and give up on performing in voice. And then I was just about to start that degree 1 week away, and I was invited to a voice conference with 10,000 voice experts from all around the world converging on Brisbane for the first time ever. And I was, oh, I've got to be there. And then when I was there attending all these lectures on voice, I burst into tears, and it came to me as like, I am not done with voice. I have a lot more to learn. I have a lot more to unpack. And I was going into psychology, hiding from the fact that I wasn't yet done. So it really changed my life. And after doing my master's degree in voice, everything sort of fell into place. And now I teach from a holistic perspective. So my passion these days is just helping people speak up and speak out for themselves, whether that's on camera as a business owner or whether it's in life in general. If you're holding your tongue, it doesn't make you happy. It creates so much frustration and anger and resentment and triggers. The triggers are constant with people, and all because they don't feel seen and heard. It's so sad. And I was one of those people.
I love it. And I've had the absolute pleasure of attending your webinars and speaking to you face to face. And I look forward to hopefully catching up with you in Sydney soon. But I understand what you're saying. If your voice is locked up, and that's physically as well as mentally, then you will have trouble communicating. And as humans, that is what we do. We connect. That's what our life is all about. So without that, we will implode, won't we? We'll become further and further insulated from what's going on in the outside world and won't be able to participate well.
Yeah, and that was Tracy, that was me. And I was a performer, for God's sake, and it got so bad that if I was at a party, for instance, and people would see me as a performer and they'd say, oh, you're a singer, get up and sing. It's like, that was my worst nightmare. If somebody asked me to sing on cue, it's like, well, I'm here off having a good time at a party, drinking and eating and, all the wrong things. It's not the right moment for me to just switch on and become a performer. When I'm actually at a party or somewhere else, I become the introvert again. I just want to be left alone. I want to do my own thing. I want to enjoy without the pressure, because performing, it was a lot of pressure for me. I had to switch on. And for an introvert to really be on, that was a lot of work. So I realized very quickly when I put all the pieces together, wrote the book, did the extra master's degree, I realized that the power, or rather the quality of our communication, is in direct relationship to our happiness and fulfillment. And if you really think about that, how we communicate in life will either make us happy and fulfilled or not. And it's so true. I've seen it for me, and I've seen it with hundreds or thousands of students of mine all over the world. When they feel not seen, not heard, they can't speak up, they get talked over in meetings, people ignore them. When they don't feel like people listen to them, they shut down. And that leads to anxiety and depression in a very deep way. And you let that go over years and years and years. I've even seen it lead to suicide. And in fact, I had a client on the phone the other day. I was so worried about him. He called me up for a free vocal impact session. I gave him 30 minutes of my time. He literally sounded like that was the end of his tether and he was about to finish it off. And I picked this up energetically and I said, look, I'm really concerned that your voice is telling me that you have a lot of anxiety and depression. and I just want to make sure that you're okay, because I've heard this pattern before, and I know the pattern of people are thinking about suicide when they have that vocal pattern. And he said, Elisa, I was actually thinking about that this week, ending it all. I was like, oh my God, I know it's hard to help everybody, but these are the people that suffer the most, and they suffer in silence. It's terrible. There's no need to, there's really no need to. We're all too hard on ourselves.
Tell me, as an educator in the schooling system, it never ceases to amaze me the high percentage globally of people who don't like to sing and think they're not good enough, and don't like to speak publicly because they don't think they're good enough. Do you, from your experience in terms of education systems, do you think that there's a big gap missing there that is actually causing some of this?
Yes, I do. Look, I can't say now the schooling system, because I'm not in, and I have stepchildren in the schooling system now, and I have to interview them to see what they're saying. But when I was going through school, and when my son, who's 36, was going through school, there wasn't much opportunity for growth in that area. And one very painful thing for both me and a lot of my students are, if you're in school, especially in grade school and elementary school, at a young age, say between the ages of 7 and 11, if you're auditioning for choir, for instance, and then the choir director is auditioning everybody and then goes and listens to you sing and then says, you're not required, thanks, bye, in front of everybody, we don't need you, you're not good enough to be in the choir, that can leave so much damage on a child's self-esteem. It is incredible. I've had students in Europe, in America, because I lived overseas for a long time, in America and Australia, coming to me at 50, 60, 70, telling me that exact story, that in front of everybody, they felt humiliated because they couldn't sing in tune, or they weren't good enough, or whatever it was, and they got expelled from the choir. The best thing they could have done is somehow got 2 choirs, one with a little extra work and one more for performance, like an A and B choir, because that would really help children feel better about themselves, learn good musical skills, which really accesses more of the brain, on the left side and the right side of the brain. It is so good for everybody. That tiny little adjustment would be enormous for so many people. And the second adjustment is make public speaking compulsory. Absolutely. But really find out who needs the extra help, and don't let them get humiliated and embarrassed in front of the school because they can't read because of dyslexia, or they can't perform because of anxiety, or because of a cultural difference of a language issue, ESL students, for instance. Those people, again, can be put into another class that have extra elocution, extra pronunciation, extra articulation, help with nerves, maybe some hypnotherapy, some guided imagery, some meditation, things to really uplift them and support them on their journey. So when they get to speak in front of people, it's less stressful and they feel more articulate. Whereas the extroverts, who are great readers and very intelligent and super, on top of everything, they'll excel. Of course they will. But us little anxious girls that got left behind, we're looking up to them going, I wish I could be like that, but I'm not. So I'll just shut my mouth and hide, because I can't compete against that. There's no way. I couldn't either as a child. Tracy, I didn't even get into the choir.
No.
And yet my best friends at school, both of them got into the choir, that because they weren't as nervous as me and they weren't as anxious as me. And then they performed, for the rest of school in every performance and I was so jealous and so hurt by that. And I went on to become a professional entertainer and singer for a living, and they never did. They left school and never sang again. It's like, well, and that really damaged me. And how many other people does that damage?
I agree with you, and I think it's really concerning, because a good part of our assessment in schools nationwide requires that students stand in front of their peers and present. Now, that alone tells us that a voice is so important in a day-to-day school, and if we were to harness that and leverage that for good, we would see our unique students emerge and show their real selves with confidence to do so. And I think it might sound to the average person like it's only a small thing, but it isn't. It is huge, because humans need connection. And if we're not targeting that most critically important area of voice, then kids are going to have trouble learning, aren't they? Because they can't articulate their needs.
Absolutely. And, you know, even when we get to being business owners, when I have a business owner that's 30, 40, 50, and that's been their past, shut down, you know, jaw tension, tongue root tension, anxiety, chest breathing, all of those tension patterns lead to a resting of the voice, or the throat chakra and the heart chakra is completely blocked, or those energy centers are really blocked, and they have no idea how to speak up and speak out for themselves. Even when they're trying to write video content or write stuff for articles or something, they can't even articulate what they do, because the anxiousness is arresting their everything. They can't think properly. The neocortex, of course, doesn't work when you're in anxiety and you go into fight or flight. The first thing we do is forget what we're going to say. So that holds everybody back. So even as business owners, this is really showing up, that people will post a picture, for instance, and a little text because they feel safe to hide behind that, but they won't jump on video and articulate what they can do really well, that they might have 30 years experience in. And that's going to hold them back in business as well as in life.
And that's exactly right. It transgresses through in life, doesn't it? Forever. It is something that, you know, good voice training is something you have forever, whereas there's a lot of subjects in our education system that you'll never, ever use at all, ever. So it just seems to me like a ridiculous point that is missed. And it's glaringly obvious that it's something that needs to happen in terms of human connection. Now, you were talking about, our listeners will probably, I would say, want to know more about this. You were talking about unlocking your voice, but physically unlocking your jaw and your throat. Could you explain to us a bit more about that, and perhaps give our listeners some hints what they can do if they find that's happening to them?
Oh, look, absolutely. What I call it is the psychology behind the sound. And when we really start to look at the psychology behind the sound, we can identify the voice patterns that are happening right now. And I'll give you an example of those and why they manifested in the first place. Because every voice pattern that I've come across so far, and thousands of people, have been specific manifestations of a physical muscle tension pattern because of something that happened. Now, what is actually happening, of course, is way back when, say when we were 7 and we got shut down for whatever reason, we learned very quickly that that's the way. Shut your mouth, hold your jaw, pull your tongue back, don't say anything, literally hold your tongue, literally, because if you speak up, you might get belted or bullied or hit or judged or criticized. So the amygdala learns very quickly after one painful situation that, this new situation looks a little bit like that one. So whoops, let's go into full fight or flight, danger, warning, and run away as fast as we can, because we got into a lot of panic last time and it led to a lot of hurt. So let's not do that to ourselves again. So this is what's happening. And the problem is, the more that happens in our life, the more we let it happen without disarming the nervous system, the more it digs that really strong groove into the neurological processes of the brain. So every single time your amygdala sees something slightly the same, it'll just fire again. And we're just muscle priming. We're really getting ready to fight or flight. When we're muscle priming, a few things happen. Our brain, of course, will not get the oxygen in the blood that it needs, so we'll forget what we're going to say. So it's like, that's stress all in itself. Then we have these tension patterns that kick in because of our amygdala. It's going to be a combination, depending on the person: jaw shutting, tongue pulling back, lips not moving. We might go into mumble. We might go into monotone. Or if we're a little bit brave, we might go into ramble. So what we'll do when we ramble, for instance, is blah, 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 without taking any punctuation marks at all. So there's no space, there's no comma, there's no full stop. And when people do that, they've literally come from that same background, but now they're trying to get over it by speaking as fast and as much as they can before someone shuts them down. Because that's what they've learned, that if they don't get everything out really quick, somebody will shut me down and switch off. So I've just got to go Speedy Gonzalez. That doesn't work either. And then we'll have tension patterns in the throat. So they'll say when they go on camera or on stage that the first thing that happens is they can't breathe.
Yes,
well,
yes.
When we go into fight or flight, we don't need to necessarily breathe. We need to run. We need to have the heart and lungs working, of course, but then the first thing that we do is the muscle priming. When we're muscle primed, we go into tension patterns that make us run faster or make us fight stronger. So when we have these tension patterns and we know what they are, we have to analyze what they are. I call it track and notice. When we're tracking and notice going through our symptoms of fight or flight, you've got to notice what you have. For me, it's definitely throat tension. And then it's might be chest breathing or my heart pumping too fast, and my tummy will get tight. So now that I'm aware of my patterns, then I'm aware of what I need to let go of. So what I use is a little system called trauma first aid. And trauma first aid it can be broken down into 4 really simple steps. 1, what do I notice? I notice my throat getting tight, my tongue getting tight. I can't breathe. My chest is hurting. My heart is pumping. But then once you've noticed that, and you can be speaking and presenting through this, I've done this, actually working during it, then you can say in the background, okay, what else do I notice? Well, I notice my hands around a water bottle. I notice my fingers on my thighs. I notice my feet on the floor. I notice my butt in a chair. You know, what else do I notice? So now what we're doing is we're bringing our attention to the periphery instead of our attention to, oh my God, my heart is beating so fast. Oh my God, my throat is closing up. Because that's what we normally do. We get so focused on the symptoms, we think our body is going crazy on us and becoming this monster that's taking over the whole body, that we get so focused on the monster that we can't think of something else. So when we start to focus on the periphery, now we've got attention going to our fingers and our toes, which is exactly what we need to take it away from the heart and lungs. This is such a simple thing, but it's the simple age-old saying, where focus goes, energy flows. It's Tony Robbins has been teaching this for 20 years. So is a lot of other people. It's been around for hundreds or thousands of years. Whatever we focus on expands and grows. So if you're focusing on your nerves and the tension patterns, you're never going to break free of them. You've got to start focusing on your fingers and your toes. And it's a really strange thing. Years ago when I was 14 and I had a lot of tension patterns because I was very nervous, and I was trying out for my first Estedfed, and I was going to sing a song with a very high note, you know, and I was so nervous about the one note, of course, that I would butcher the entire song because I was worried about one note. As you do when you're a singer, stupid, you torture yourself over one thing that's like a tiny portion of the song. Anyway, so I was taught by my teacher this simple trick. Every time you go to sing that one note, I want you to turn your head as though you've seen a ghost and then raise your eyebrows at exactly the same time. It's like, what the fuck is she talking about? So it's like, you know, it's like, and then so you have to do this thing to make you seem like you've seen a ghost, really scary. But lo and behold, it works. Why? Because I'm distracted. It's a simple distraction technique, but every time I hit the note, if I did it like the ghost with the surprise, you know, and then eventually you just learn, oh, okay, you just got to open your throat and go for it. Really, it's going to work. But in this situation, track and notice, what else do I notice? Then you'll notice when you've noticed your fingers and your toes, you will start to breathe again. So you're going to take a deep diaphragmatic breath, not from your chest, from your lower lungs for 1 second. And then on the spoken word, you exhale, bringing your tummy in towards the spine. And all you have to say to yourself to ground is, when I am speaking, my tummy moves in. When I'm speaking, my tummy moves in. And when you've mastered that, so that's step 3, then you can pop into gratitude. And the last step is super important, because most of the time when we're in this situation that's scary, a lot of the time it's also exciting. It's an exciting opportunity that's been given to us that we see as so important that we've put all this pressure on ourselves and it becomes scary instead of fun. So when we really start to see that excitement and nerves is almost the same thing, then we can start to feel very grateful. So I did this literally in a speaking gig after I'd learned all this stuff from my master's degree in America, all about energy. And I went through my entire speech doing this exercise. And the last point I got to, I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful to teach these people. I'm so grateful to stand in front of this audience. Oh my God, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you that I'm actually here and I'm serving my clients and helping them change their lives. That changed everything for me. Those 4 steps locked everything into place. So now when I get even the tiniest bit nervous, I just put all that into play and it's like a habit for me now. That's the difference. When it's not a habit, your habit will be going into fight or flight. That habit runs deep for decades. You've got to stop the habit in its tracks. You've got to learn a new habit. And this is the new habit that I learned that worked immediately for me.
So to summarize that for our listeners, you had 4 points and you called this the trauma first aid. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yes. So the first point was, what do I notice is happening about me? The second point is breathing.
No, the second point is, what else do I notice?
What else do I notice?
Hands and feet. Where are my fingers and where are my toes?
Right.
What are my fingers doing? What are my toes?
Okay, good. Then the third one is when I'm speaking.
Yep, take a deep breath and start utilizing that mindfulness when you're speaking with airflow. Breathe, speak from the stomach. Breathe, speak from the stomach. Yeah. And then the final point is pop into gratitude.
Yeah. So when I'm speaking, my tummy moves in. So that's a really good thing for listeners to hear, isn't it? I was trying to capture that one. When I'm speaking, my tummy moves in. So concentrating on that breathing.
Yeah. And you know what? And I had the perfect opportunity to teach this literally the day after I'd finished that class at my university. I was living in Kansas City at the time. Or no, I was living in Florida, and I flew to Kansas City, Missouri to study at Unity Worldwide Headquarters. So it's a church that is massive in the United States. You might be familiar with it. So Unity was great. So I did a lot of my training at Unity. It just held the university that I was studying at. So I had just done this 4-day class in trauma first aid, learning about all this sort of stuff to break my own trauma patterns from car accidents and things from the past. Yes. Now, I got on the plane to go home. Lo and behold, the guy sitting next to me started having a full-blown panic attack even before we took off. It's like he was literally rocking in his chair like this, like real. And I thought, he's going to get thrown off the plane unless I do something, right? He was massively out of control. So I explained to him, I said, look, I've just learned this new technique. Can I run this by you and let's do it together? Yes. And then let's get through this together and see if it works. Worst case scenario, get off the plane. But I took him through this. Within 10 minutes, we were talking, laughing, and having a drink together.
Lovely.
Seriously, it was that quick. It changed his life, and it went to me. It was like, oh, this stuff really works. It really changed everything. And I've used it in accidents. I've used it, with all sorts of things that come up. Even my trainer who trained me, she used this technique after she had a car accident. She was thrown out of the car. She was flat on the ground on the bitumen doing the same exercise. I can feel my feet. I can feel my toes. I'm okay. Breathe. I'm alive. She didn't know whether she was going to survive, but it helped her calm down. And let's face it, being calm in any situation is going to help.
That's right. No, that's right. So you've had over 30 years of experience and you've traveled worldwide. So you have a really good understanding across a broad range of areas there in terms of voice coaching. So can you tell us about the edu training tag that you've got there that you use?
Yeah, edutainer. Yeah. So what I actually call that is because I realized when I became a voice coach as opposed to an entertainer, everything I do on stage, I still bring the me as the entertainer to my presentation. And I realized the importance of that. And I realized the importance of things like combining entertainment and performance skills, stagecraft, if you will. I realized the importance of that very many years ago, because years and years and years ago, it really dawned on me when I was a champion baton twirler. I was not the best baton twirler in the bunch, Tracy. I was like pretty average, right? Yeah, it's baton twirling is hard, and this is before the days of 2 batons that had just started to come in, but we were still twirling 1 baton. And I, New South Wales champion, and then I got Australian champion in my age group at about 11 or 12. Now, I was super nervous. My hands would be shaking all the time. I dropped the friggin' baton all the time because my palms were sweating. I was just a nervous wreck, right? And so I could not rely on my skills as a baton twirler because I knew that my nerves would stuff me up somehow. So as an ice skater, as a dancer, as a singer, as a performer, with all the other stuff that these baton twirlers did not have, I put cartwheels in. And I would do the flare, and then I would have the fabulous ice skating costume. And then, so I'd have all these entertainment factors that would take away from the fact that I was so friggin' nervous that I dropped the baton every 5 seconds, that I ended up winning because of the showmanship skills.
Yes.
I won because of showmanship. I did not win because of my twirling capabilities. Now, that really made a huge impression on me. And in the same competition, there was another girl that made a huge impression on me. And this is probably the reason I kept going all of my life through massive anxiety and nerves. This girl who won every open competition, this is the hardest twirling type of level. She won every competition everywhere she went, came first place because she was a brilliant twirler, technically awesome. No showmanship, no smile, no nothing, but just technically awesome. Every single time she went onto that stage and she did her 3-minute routine, she was so sick to the stomach with nerves that she would vomit in the middle of her performance. She would vomit on the stage, chunder everywhere, and keep going. She never missed a beat. And then every single time she finished, the mops and the buckets would come out. And I'd think, oh my God, I'm not that bad.
That's doing it tough, isn't it?
And she did it every time. And every time she somehow got through. That really made an impact as a child for me. It's like, if she can do it,
yes,
I can do it.
So
and
tell me,
vomit.
Did she beat it in the end? Did she beat the vomiting?
I don't know. I mean, I gave up twirling when I was about 12, and that was the last competition I did. But I tell you what, I'd love to thank her. She changed my life. It really made me realize that it doesn't matter what you feel, you can still do it, and you will get over it in time. It's just rewiring the brain. See, I didn't learn to rewire my brain or rewire my thinking, reframe as I call. I didn't learn that for a very long time. I wished I would have learned that sooner. I didn't probably learn it until after I was 40, which is pretty sad.
But these things happen, which is what we were saying earlier in terms of education for the masses. That voice is critical. It's absolutely critical before STEM or anything else, because if you can't use your voice, then you can't relay the things that you need there for the information that you need to get ahead. So it's a no-brainer, isn't it, really?
Oh, look, absolutely. And because of what happened to me at school and being bullied and being shut down and all that, if I can be completely open and honest and raw here, that led to me not saying no when I could have many, many times. And it led to a rape that didn't need to happen.
Oh, no.
So this is because I didn't know how to speak up and speak out for myself. And this is one of the most important things that I needed to learn as a human being. And I was not taught. I was taught to shut my mouth and deal with it or sweep it under the carpet or whatever. So, for most of my life, I didn't tell anyone, because it was embarrassing that I allowed that to happen. That's how I perceived that. and then it nearly happened again. And then I was stalked and then bullied again for years and years and years because I didn't have a voice. I didn't speak up. I wasn't in alignment with my values. I wasn't taught that speaking up is a good thing. I wasn't taught that. And we really need that at school. And if I could have my time again, I'd go back as a child and speak to the principal and pull him aside and say, hey, I'm not getting the support that I need. I want to commit suicide. I nearly tried. Well, I did try. I tried to get run over at school. I tried all sorts of things. I took too many pills, and because I didn't want to live, because I didn't have a voice. I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel valued. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel accepted. And that led to all that trauma that went on for the next 20 years. Now, if I'd gotten more support and if I had been brave enough to ask somebody, I maybe would have gotten the help, but I wasn't, and there was no help. There was no speaking. There was no debate. There was no public speaking skills. There was no anxiety help. There was no child psychologist. I didn't know where to go. I was ashamed. I just shut my mouth and hid. So everybody thinks that you're okay, but I wasn't.
It's
How many
interesting.
people slip through these cracks?
And we know it's a really, really high percentage. So in Australia, and I can speak on behalf of educators in Australia and education, the fact is that we have such a high bullying and assault rate here in Australia. People overseas don't realise just how bad it is. Yeah. And I believe that's because we don't teach our students very early in the piece how to speak and articulate their needs properly. So they do exactly what you're saying. And our data shows us explicitly that this is what's going on. And Australia is now out of control. We're in the top, I think, 3 in the world in terms of how bad our bullying is. Wow. And it's serious stuff, really serious stuff. And whilst we've got great surveys that tell us the data, and it speaks volumes in terms of what is wrong, none of our departments across Australia have figured it out that it's one element, it's this element. And if they were to look at the curriculum across the board, across Australia, the nation, and change that one element and make it absolutely critically imperative for all students to learn how to speak, your job will be so much easier, because then you'll be able to take them to their very next level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But in the meantime, they're down here in the mud, crawling through the pain and agony of the bullying and rape, as you said, and the physical assault, because people can't articulate. And it's a very critical area in our system. Yeah. And no one seems to get it. No one seems to get it. It's a bleeding obvious.
Yeah. And you're right. And, how many people am I missing? I have programs of varying degrees for pretty much everyone, but an online course is only going to get you so far. It's because there's a lot of work that goes into this personal growth, because voice is vulnerable. It's all about personal growth. The whole thing is about me, about my hang-ups, my belief systems, my mindset, my health, my cultural influences. All of that is affecting everything, the way that I sound. So learning through an online course is great, but you really need the support of a group that feels the same. You need the support of other people that are going through similar things. And not everybody can afford voice training. Not everybody can afford counseling. But I don't think counseling is necessarily going to help, because you're just talking through the same problems and it's not going to propel you forward. I've had people that have come to me saying they've had counseling for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 12 years, and they've still got the same issues. I don't understand why the struggle is still there. I actually move energy. And I think that's the key. I think when you're moving energy in a positive way, I call it reverse engineering confidence. And I do that through mechanics, through mindset and physiology. I literally teach you how to make strong, confident voice patterns so you can sound clear, strong, and compelling every time you speak, regardless of how you feel and regardless of what nerves are going on in your body. Because you can control your respiratory function, you can control your phonation system, and you can control your nervous system. You can, and you control your mindset. Now, once you've got all of that under control, I call it voice mastery, then you'll be able to speak up and speak out regardless of the situation, regardless of whether it's 20,000 people or 20 in a boardroom. It doesn't make any difference. You're there to serve other people, and you can do it to the best of your ability. That's why I call it reverse engineering, because that's what I had to learn. I had to learn not to do it from beating myself up, but I actually do it from mechanics.
Yes, and that's the key, isn't it? This is why you stand apart to others. Now, tell me, in your fabulous career, you've been a singer, I hear, and also an actor. And I know a lot of our listeners would be very keen to hear more about that. Can you tell us a bit more about your acting career?
Yeah, sure. I started out as an actor because I was in that fantasy mindset. That's where I wanted to live my life, in an MGM musical, not in my life. I wanted to be with Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly. I didn't want to live in Australia, you know. It looked more fabulous to me. So at a very young age, I got very fascinated by musical theatre and plays specifically. Now, in Australia, we don't really have a huge film industry like Hollywood. So I didn't dream big enough, I don't think, when I was a child. But I knew that the way that I could perform and get out of my own shell and, you know, be in that little fantasy world was with review, cabaret, bands, recording contracts, musical theatres and plays. That's mostly where I sort of hung my hat, if you like, as a performer. So I started very young doing tap, jazz, ballet, acrobatics, gymnastics, baton twirling, ice skating, and piano. So that gave me a very good grounding from about the age of 7. Now, when I wasn't allowed to sing, mind you, at all until I was 14. I wanted to, but I wasn't allowed to because of the belief system back then. So finally at 14, I was allowed to have singing lessons. So then that put the whole thing sort of in a better perspective for me. So from 11, I got an agent, and I was already doing extra work and, you know, featured extra work in TV shows and movies and TV commercials and things like that. But my nerves and my anxiety held me back from performing in auditions very well. So I didn't get the lead roles because I was a nightmare. As soon as he put a camera on, I was like, and then they would say, "Oh, you have such beautiful blue eyes." And I'd be sitting there going, "They're green. They're green. Are you blind? They're green." And I couldn't speak. So, and I'd be so scared. I couldn't speak. So I missed out on, you know, really being a serious actress. And that was really my heart's desire first. But I did okay. You know, I did a lot of commercials, and I did some short films and some training films and got some movies and things like that as a child. But then over the years, singing was easier. I was in a 4-year degree program doing a drama degree with Hayes Gordon, one of the most respected actors from America at the time. He'd moved to Australia and opened the Ensemble Theatre. And the Ensemble Theatre was pretty much the ant's pants next to NIDA. Well, I wasn't confident enough to go to NIDA or even think about going to NIDA. So I thought, I like Hayes Gordon. I'll go and audition for the Ensemble Theatre. So as a 17-year-old, you know, I'd already travelled Australia on cruise ships, and as 14-year-old in the Johnny Young Talent School performance team. I'd done a 12-month contract with Rudis production company. I'd worked around Australia with the Seven Dwarves, doing Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. And then I was in Barnum, and I did 8 shows a week for 12 months with Reg Livermore, you know, going around Australia with that. So I knew that I could do singing, dancing, acting as a triple threat, but I was really seriously I wanted to be in movies. So then I joined this acting school, and I was going to do this 4-year program, and I fell pregnant in the first year. And Hayes pulled me aside and said, "These things happen. We would like you to have the baby and come back because you have talent and we want you in the program." I was so humiliated and so upset as an 18-year-old who'd just fallen pregnant, not knowing what to do, that I hid and left the program and never went back.
No.
So then so that it was really hard for me because, again, I didn't have a voice back then. You know, I was a different type of person. So I figured out very quickly, well, I need to earn money, and now I'm a single parent. The guy has taken off. I need to survive. I found out that I could sing pretty well, so I started taking gigs on. So I just ended up doing gig after gig after gig after gig after gig, and then recording gigs, and then I got a record deal, then I moved overseas. Singing became so much easier. I missed the whole package of singing, dancing, acting, because I did that up until about 28 in Australia. Singing, dancing, acting was my thing. Musical theatre, reviews, cabaret, shows, show bands, things like that. But then when I moved to Europe, because I was speaking different languages, I wasn't comfortable with acting. But then I had the opportunity to go to America. And when I was living in Kansas City, Missouri, for a whole different reason, I found myself there because of the big crash, the financial crash. And we ended up going there to save a real estate business, which my husband had at the time. I thought, you know what? Okay, instead of beating myself up and saying I've lost everything, my life is shit, if I had the opportunity to start again, what would I do over in my life that I really regretted not doing? And the first thing that came down for me was acting. You've got to get back into acting. So I thought, oh, what a brilliant idea. Now I'm a different person. I'm in America. I can speak the language. You know, don't have any barriers in any of the ways. The very first audition I got booked. I got the next audition I get booked. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe I'm half decent. So then I ended up getting commercials and short films and feature films and things like that. Ended up coming back to Australia, still had the bug of acting. So I have the same thing going on here. So I do the same type of thing. You know, I haven't broken through and had a role on Neighbours or anything by any stretch, but I do a lot of training films, a lot of corporate films. I have a very good YouTube channel, lots of content on there. And I do a lot of commercials. So I have apparently a commercial face, they call it. When you have a commercial face, it's like the girl next door can basically sell anything, you know. And it's fun. It's just being me with a few words thrown in, basically.
It's important though, isn't it? Now, I know our listeners will want to know how to find you. So I'm just going to let them know that Elisa's name is spelt Elisa, James, James. So you can find Elisa. On her
Elisa,
website, elisajames.com. So elisajames.com. You can find her on all the social media, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. But on elisajames.com, you can actually book a free session with her. And the Voice of Confidence TV is the program, is it? So you can actually have a...
sorry. So let me just clarify that. So on elisajames.com, so it's Lisa with an E at the front. It's pretty easy. So elisajames.com, if you go to book a session, you'll see the very top session that you can book is a free session called a vocal impact session. And that's a 30-minute session to talk through your issues. What is it that you're struggling with? I can hear the sound of your voice. We can talk about what's holding you back and where you want to go. So once I know that information, then I'll be able to put together, okay, what do we need moving forward to break through your blockages of self-expression? Would it be best for an online course, or would it be best to jump into a group class? Or maybe it would be better for you to jump into one-on-one training. It depends on the person. Once I hear them, and I hear their story and where they want to go and how fast they want to go, then I can make those decisions. So it's always much better to jump on a call either by Zoom or by phone. Now, for people who are not ready to jump into serious voice training, but really want to know more about the voice, I have loads of content on my YouTube channel. You just have to go to YouTube and type in The Voice of Confidence TV. And that's my channel. And I have a lot of really great free training content on there for people who are looking for free stuff.
Okay, that's The Voice of Confidence TV. So listeners, The Voice of Confidence TV, and that's on YouTube.
YouTube, yep.
Well, great. So that's and you've also got elisajames.com to book a session, and you've got access to all those free goodies that Elisa's helping us with there. So that's really good. It's been fabulous speaking with you, but I haven't finished with you just yet. But I did want to get that information out there and not lose it. So tell us, what is your proudest business accomplishment? Can you share with us?
Ooh. So not performance.
Anything at all.
Business.
Anything at all. Your proudest business accomplishment.
Well, I think probably working with really high-end speakers. When I was asked, there are two specific speakers I'm thinking about, because I realize that some people struggle with different issues that I have the expertise to fix, which really makes me happy, because I love helping people. One, in America, when I was coming off cruise ships as an entertainer, and I was thinking, you know what, I'm going to start a studio in Florida where I was living at the time. The very first student that came to me, I don't know how he found me because I hadn't even opened my business yet. His name was Peter, and I can't tell you who it is, but he owned the biggest motivational speaking company in the States. God knows how he found me or why he chose me as a singer, because he wanted speaking training and voice training to protect his voice from harm. Now, he was speaking to 20, 30, 40,000 people in stadium events right across America and running these things with celebrities, politicians, ex-presidents, all that sort of stuff. So he ended up, I thought I'd have him for maybe a few sessions. He ended up coming to me every week for 4 years. That's how much time we spent together. And I felt so honored that somebody who is so successful would still reach out for more information and more training. And the exact same thing happened when I moved back to Australia. One of my very first clients ended up being one of the most famous and successful speakers in the Tony Robbins organization. And he speaks on stage for Tony Robbins now every second day, because Tony can't keep up with the speaking pace. So Tony speaks for the first day, and then my client speaks for the second day. The same thing. And then we flew to Singapore so I could support him doing UPW last year in September in Singapore. And it was just such an honor to be there on that level as his voice coach, taking care of his instrument. He honored and respected his instrument and how he was performing in front of 9,000 people so much that he brought me along to make sure that he was doing everything right. And I just, that makes me so happy, knowing that people are A, respecting their body and the instrument, B, respecting their personal growth, C, reaching out for help when they need it to propel them to the next level, whatever that is.
And it's really important, isn't it? Because whilst that person could be the most fabulous speaker internationally, it doesn't mean that they can look after the mechanics of the tool,
exactly.
which is their voice. And they need those experts. Yeah. And that's a big lesson for our listeners today, is that when you need help, regardless of what area it is that Elisa's been talking about, because Elisa's talking about a whole holistic package here, that within each area, if you need help, you need to reach out to an expert in that area. Tell me.
Look, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm just looking at the time, so I know we're going to be running out shortly, and I was just wondering if you could tell us what's one fun fact about you that you can share with our listeners today.
One fun fact.
Yes.
I ran away to join the circus twice. Ever since I was 4 years old, I wanted to be in the circus. That was one of my other dreams. Apart from being an actress, I wanted to be in the circus, and I wanted to be one of the girls who rode the elephant, or I wanted to be on the trapeze, or both. Now, I never made it to the elephant, but I ended up being a trapeze artist. So the very first show was called Barnum. It was the Barnum and Bailey Circus on the stage, and I ended up singing, dancing, acrobating, doing roller bowler, riding the unicycle, juggling, Chinese ribbons, and trapeze. And that was my gig. And I fell in love with circus. I just loved it. So much so that I was pining for quite a few years after that, still young enough to do circus, that somebody remembered me, a production company remembered me from that, and then asked me again at the age of about 21, when I was dragging a 2-year-old around the world with me. And then they wanted me to join their actual circus in caravans traveling around Australia. But instead of doing trapeze, it was a high wire motorbike stunt act. So similar type of tricks, but this time on a fiberglass horse with a pole stuck in it and a loop at the top, where we had to do all these acrobatic maneuvers while the whole thing is going round and round, and there were firecrackers, coming out of everything, and we had all these sparkles, and oh my goodness, what an amazing life. So I actually got to fulfill 2 dreams in one before the age of 25. So it was like, yay.
That's amazing.
I loved it.
A circus entity. Isn't that wonderful? A real live circus entity. I remember a student coming up to me, a grade 12 girl, one year, and she said, Miss, I want to go into the circus. She ended up going into nursing. And I think
that's a bit different.
Yeah,
different type of circus, I think.
Yeah, because we're so conditioned, aren't we, that we have to do A, B, or C or D. Like it's education, you go into either university or you go into trades. And
see, yeah, I never did that.
Yeah, and
I never had a plan B.
No, the creative arts, though, is left behind all the time in the schooling system. And you are a classic example of chasing that dream and being a trapeze artist. And I could have pegged that because you said that you did gymnastics. So as soon as I heard you say circus and I knew you'd done gymnastics, I thought, I bet. So that's lovely to hear. How wonderful. That's we've got lots of golden nuggets from you today, and I really, really enjoy hearing you. I'm sure we have to have you back again. I'm sure the listeners would like to have you back. So can you tell us a little bit about your courses to share some of that information to our listeners before we head out?
Absolutely. The best course I would highly recommend is the course that's on right now that I run multiple times a year. It's called the Ultimate Speaker Confidence Bootcamp. And it's a 6-week live class with me, and you get access to me every single week. It's on Wednesdays and Fridays, 10 o'clock in the morning, Sydney time. And I have 2 classes running every single week, and I do this at least 4 or 5 times a year. Now, I have usually only 8 to 10 people in the class specifically because it's all about you, not about me. So we have a very small class to make sure that every person in the class gets one-on-one time with me in that class. It's a 1.5 to 2 hour class every single week. And then it's backed up with training on an online course that you can study and remind yourself of what we did in between sessions. And then you get the support of everybody in that group in a private Facebook group where you post your video homework. And the whole idea, of course, is to give you confidence to speak up and speak out for yourself if that's what you need, or as a business owner, confidence to speak with competence on camera with no nerves. So we always have 2 types of people in the class. Some of them just want to get over their nervousness in life, and the others are definitely business people who want to be on camera. And then when they're ready to move forward after that 6-week program, they go into the advanced program and get even more greater levels of speaking, so to speak, because that's like the advanced class. So that's what I would suggest. That would be a really good trajectory, is join that beginners group, the Ultimate Speaker Confidence Bootcamp. And they can have a look at the details if they go to www.thevoiceofaleader.com. And that outlines all of the details of that particular group class. Now, the group class is running right now, but it's only week 2. And they're very welcome to jump in right now because they can just watch the replay for week 1 last week.
Sounds good. Elisa, time is up. So I'd like to thank you so much on behalf of Tracy Tully Talks and everyone with us. To our listeners, thanks for listening to another 60 minutes of inspiring talking points, and we bid you farewell. Thanks for listening to another 60 minutes of inspiring talking points on Tracy Tully Talks, brought to you by bbsradio.com. Tune in every Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Australian time, AEST, and 5 p.m. PT time in America. Leave me a message on my website at www.bbsradio.com/Tracy Tully Talks. If you're interested in lifting the profile, presence and profit of your business, sponsorship opportunities are available. Until next Thursday, it's goodbye from me.